So it's 4 o'clock and I will call to order this special meeting of the Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners to just address 2 items that couldn't wait until our next meeting. And we'll start with the roll call, please, Kim.
Kathleen Mills.
Here.
Israel Herrera.
Here.
Jim Whitlatch.
I am here. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you, Kim. So our first item today, A1, is in other business, is to hear an appeal of a proposed tree removal at 301 West 15th Street, but I believe is it West or East 15th? I see 2 different.
It is East 15th.
It's East 15th. Okay, so silver maple at 301 East 15th Street along the North Lincoln Street side of the property. So Aaron, do you want to go ahead and tell us about the background there, and then we can talk about the appeal?
Yes, so essentially I was called out from the Streets Department and Public Works to examine the condition of this tree due to complaints of sidewalk conditions along this section of North Lincoln, and specifically asking for my opinion and advice in regards to this tree, because there is significant sidewalk lifting at this section, and seeing kind of what sidewalk work would be possible and if retention of the tree could be possible with the sidewalk work.
Okay, and it was determined that it's a very large tree in a very small space, and there isn't really any way to repair the sidewalk without causing a lot of damage to the tree roots. Is that?
Essentially, this is, I believe, like an under 6 foot wide sidewalk, and it's a 33-inch silver maple. And the sidewalk damage right now is lifting due to the street tree having outgrown the allotted space. The tree itself is in all right condition, but it's not in thriving condition. So even without repairs to the sidewalk, I could see this becoming a potential problem tree in a few years due to the restriction of that growing space. After looking at this tree and looking at the sidewalk, I actually reached back out to the Streets Department to discuss whether or not grinding of the sidewalk was possible, as sometimes that's something we could do instead of actually fully removing the individual sidewalk pieces, which includes excavation and damage of those roots. But there's kind of a height threshold for when that's allowable versus not. In this case, the lifting is large enough that it would have to be a full repair, and just how tight that space is, that would mean significant damage to that root systems, which could even lead to a stability issue as well.
Okay, and so just curious, roughly how long does it take a maple of this to get to this size from little sapling?
I'm trying to remember, there's a ratio for this, but I would say a really rough estimate is this is at least a 50-year-old, if not much older maple.
Okay, all right. Yeah, like I said, I was just curious, trying to imagine someone planting it in this space and then it was appropriate at the time, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, well, the other option is that the sidewalk was built around the existing.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, all right, and then so we have Miss Sarah Coletti, I believe, who has an appeal about the removal of the tree. And do we have Miss Coletti here with us today?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right, great. So do you want to go ahead and tell us about your appeal to removing this tree?
Yeah, so hello to all of you. My name is Sarah Coletti, and I'm an MPA student, and I live on the house that the pictures that you're looking at, it would be one house to the north. So I saw that it was originally scheduled to be taken down due to an infrastructure conflict, as Aaron just described. And so looking at the tree, I can acknowledge that it's not, the youngest tree. It's not in the best condition, but it's by no means gonna fall over at this moment. So knowing the tree of that grade of size, I know that it serves as a great carbon sink. And also, I did an internship with the Public Works Department this summer. And so I talked to Michael Large about just the possibilities of doing a bump out in the sidewalk. I know that obviously it is uprooting it, but I was just wondering the possibilities of just making the path smaller around the tree, because the sidewalk beyond just the tree part is already very dated. And so that sidewalk is probably going to need to be repaved here soon anyways. And also I know that we are a tree city of the world. So just in the spirit of trying to work with older trees instead of like taking it out and planting a little baby new one. Yeah, so that's why I appealed it, just to see the possibilities of working with the tree rather than just tearing it down.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I guess I'm not entirely knowledgeable about a bump out on the sidewalk. I don't know if that's something that like Tim could speak to, or.
Yeah, Kathleen, and actually, I don't mean to put him on the spot, but we did have Joe Van Deventer from the street department in attendance as well. And
okay.
Joe, again, sorry not to put you on the spot, but maybe you could speak to just what originated this and the sidewalk work you're doing in that area, and any thoughts that you had.
Sure. This is Joe Van Deventer, Director of Street Operations. I'm not sure a bump out would be appropriate here. You still have to have 4 feet of unimpeded directional travel. And I'm not sure that we could get that with the size of this tree here. So, I don't think that would be appropriate here. That's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And any, let's just go to any questions from fellow board members.
I've got a couple of questions. I'm looking at the picture that's up on the screen, and then the picture all the way to the right, there you can see obviously where the sidewalk is impacted. That looks like it's, yes, where you're moving the arrow. That looks like it's a fair distance from the tree. Is that, and I don't know if anybody knows, is that because the root is pushing up a slab and that's just where it is affected, or is there something else going on there that is causing that problem?
I can answer this question in that, one, this picture is a little misleading and there is additional lifting that's happening as you look down further that is more directly next to the tree. But I would say based on how tree roots grow and how far they do grow out, it's likely that that is also related to the tree root along with general conditions of the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you. Then my second question is the side, so we've marked the tree to be taken down. Can somebody give me the timing if we approve this and it is taken down in relationship to when is the sidewalk work scheduled or where is that? In other words, are we going to take the tree down and there's not going to be sidewalk work done for 2 or 3 years? Or are we going to take the tree down and the sidewalk's going to be fixed in the next 6 months?
This is Joe Van Deventer again. If we took the tree down, my estimate would be my crews would be there next spring to next summer. We're nearing the end of the construction season. It would not be 2 or 3 years, but it would definitely be next year's construction season.
All right. Aaron, what would be the timing of taking the tree down based upon our notice?
The notice is that trees are supposed to be taken down within 30 days.
Okay.
But that does depend on if higher priority trees come up, say a tree that is posing a higher risk or is a potential higher hazard, that can always bump trees down.
Okay. All right. I guess my thinking on this is that sidewalks like this are, we got to, not only are we thinking about the welfare of the tree, but we got to think about the welfare of the community. And sidewalks like this are, can be extremely dangerous and can cause serious injuries to people. I know some people who have, you walk and you don't necessarily pay attention. And I know people that have had broken shoulders, broken bones from tripping over a sidewalk similar to this. We've got, even though we all have our opinions about scooters, but riding a scooter and hits one of these, it can cause significant injury. So I think and not only the injury to the person, but the liability to the city, Parks Department, those types of things. We need to have safe sidewalks. And I think this is, I don't see any, real way around this, especially with the retaining wall there to, a bump out or something being able to be a practical response. And so I guess just speaking out loud or thinking out loud, my response would be that, unfortunately, and I appreciate the request to save as many trees for as long as we can, but my personal feeling, and we'll put this to a vote, obviously, is that it probably does need to come out. I guess my two things for us to maybe talk a little bit more about is, one, the timing. If we're not going to get to fixing the sidewalk until next spring or summer, is the timing make a difference? And I don't know anything about the carbon effect when it doesn't have leaves. Is that much of a factor or not? And timing for how easy it is to get out. And then the other thing I would think about, and Aaron, maybe you can speak to this, is what's the timing and what do we do on replanting trees in these tree plots in these kind of situations?
So in terms of replanting, this tree plot would still be viable for a new tree, but it would have to be a much smaller stature tree at maturity. So something that we wouldn't potentially see this conflict in the future. And that would occur basically what the next planting season would be, in which the site is vacant. In terms of the carbon sequestration, trees do also act as carbon storage as well. So even if it's in leaf versus out of leaf, there's that aspect that stays the same.
Okay. That's all the questions I have at this point.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Israel, do you have any questions or comments?
Right, yeah. My question is related to if this was something that was just announced with the notice that is on the tree, or there was any kind of conversation with people living nearby, and if we have an official appeal, but if we or the office had any other comments from other people living close to this place.
Our current method of notifying people is through the notice of removals that are posted on trees. We don't currently, door knock individual houses around trees or send out mailers or anything around trees. The notice is just basically the publicly visible notice that's put on the tree itself. And that provides, some level of contact and things like that.
Correct. And I see the other tree on the corner, and I wonder if this might happen a few years ahead. Is this tree kind of similar to the one that it's planned to be taken out?
I don't remember the species of tree off the top of my head. I could look into that, but this level of kind of sidewalk and root conflict would not probably be for a while with that tree.
Aaron, I was out there the other day taking these pictures, and I'm pretty sure that's a sweet gum.
It's a sweet gum. Okay. So if it's a sweet gum, then there is the potential for that to have a tree root conflict in the future. But it would be, you know, say decade, 2 decades down the line.
And thank you, Erin. And my last question would be, so if this is approved, if this passes, please remind me the time when the taking out the tree will happen. It's during business time, or it's something that it's done in a different time to avoid maybe noise with people around.
Tree removals are conducted during the traditional workday for city employees.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Thank you, Kathleen. No more questions from my angle.
Okay. All right. Well, I share some of the concerns that Jim raised about the sidewalk. And I guess I'm also concerned about a possible sidewalk repair, and then a year and a half later, something, you know, a similar sort of issue, because it sounds like it can't be perfectly solved as it is if we retain the tree there. Yeah, I too have tripped on sidewalks before and fallen, and I'm a little worried about some snow or ice covering that and being unable to see the uneven pavement there. But I also, I mean, I'm sitting here looking at a large tree in my backyard that's probably going to have to be cut down soon, because just where it is and the condition of it. So I am sympathetic that it's painful to cut down a tree, especially of that size. So, so I think if we don't have any other comments or questions, then we'll go ahead and the staff recommendation is to deny the appeal and continue the removal of the tree. Although I guess I should note one more thing before we call a vote on that, it would seem, well, I don't know, the timing of such, I don't know if it should be delayed somewhat to cut down the tree if a new tree can't go in there until sometime later, but I suppose that's a decision to be discussed later on. So, all right. Anyway, with that, I guess we'll take a motion to deny the appeal, I guess is what's written on the recommendation. Do we have a motion for that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion to deny the appeal and let the tree removal go forward. I don't think we're in a position to micromanage the timing of that. All I would suggest is, this is not part of the motion, but that, you know, whenever we're doing these, we try to do it in the most efficient way as far as replanning and when the work's actually going to be done. But I'm not, we can't micromanage that. So that's going to be left up to Aaron and the street department and everybody else. But my motion is simply enough that we deny the appeal based upon safety concerns and the age of the tree and the damage that it's done to the sidewalk and may continue to do to the sidewalk. So that's my motion.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, and so Kim, do we have a roll call vote on this then, please?
Yes. Kathleen Mills,
Aye.
Israel Herrera,
Aye.
James Whitlatch.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, that motion is carried. And thank you, Ms. Coletta, for bringing this to us. I mean, it's important to take a look at these things, and we appreciate that people are concerned about the trees in our community. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you for letting me come in and talk. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
So our second item today is a post facto approval of an encroachment agreement with Nakota Braun. And Tim Street is going to tell us about this item that's on the Beeline Trail there.
Yes, hello, Park Board and everybody. My name is Tim Street. I'm the Operations Director for Bloomington Parks and Rec. Give you a little bit of background on this scenario. In May of this year, we were notified via the U-Report system that a new set of stairs had been built on what I generally refer to as the Beeline bypass. It's the area south of Switchyard Park where the Beeline actually has two trails. And when the Beeline was built, the bypass trail was built to help facilitate traffic through Switchyard Park and such. So it took us a little bit to look into this. With the help of Daniel, our counsel, we needed to kind of look into our notice of violation process for this and compare notes with how the city did that. So it took us a little while. And we were able to contact Ms. Braun, who is here with us tonight. Thank you for being with us. About this encroachment and sent that NOV letter, and she was very responsive and got right back to me and shared, she wasn't aware of the property line issues and also shared a critical piece that I wasn't aware of, that there had been a dilapidated set of stairs in this location previously. So generally speaking, Bloomington Parks and Rec, and actually the city of Bloomington, has standard encroachment agreements. So anytime a private property owner or a business wants to build or connect or do something that encroaches onto city property, an encroachment agreement is set up to ensure that basically the responsibility and liability for said encroachment rests with the individual property owner or business that is building it and is benefiting from it. So I talked to Ms. Braun and said, hey, we're going to need to review this. All of our encroachment agreements have to be reviewed by Park Board. And in this case, it would be a post-facto agreement if the Park Board agrees that this can stay. So after looking into this and talking to staff, we really looked at criteria for encroachments on our trails, because this is something that's quite honestly coming up more and more. We have a lot more people who want to encroach and build connections to our trails. And part of it is, that's what our trails are there for, is for people to have connections. However, it's also not feasible that everywhere up and down the trail we could manage, dozens of encroachments for every individual property owner. So without wanting to set a precedent, our recommendation tonight is that we do approve an encroachment agreement, a standard template encroachment agreement with the property owners at Kendall Drive, and allow this to remain. That would then be recorded with the property. That's another issue we have to take into consideration, is that property owners can change, and responsibility for the encroachment has to remain with the property. So that's where we're at with this. We do recommend approval. A couple of notes, you can see it in the pictures there, and the location is marked in the handout you're seeing. That is Winslow and Country Club there at the bottom for location, just so you can kind of tell where we're looking at. A picture of the old stairs and a picture of the new stairs, which were well built and did not have to displace any trees or anything like that to be built. And I would add that the property line here is approximately on the top of that little rise where the top of the stairs are. I don't have that exactly, but I know it's right in there. And so, one important note to consider is that these stairs are built onto public property, and so the stairs themselves are public. So any type of no trespassing or private property signs would need to remain at the property line.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tim. And there's no denying that those previous stairs were pretty deteriorated there. I wonder, and if this isn't feasible, then certainly say so. I just wonder about if there's an occasional sort of property line marking. I mean, I know that where I live near Bryant Park, there was a year or two ago, there was an effort to go around and see where the property line was. And it was news to some neighbors that were like, oh, I was mowing city property or whatever. So I don't know if that's something that's ever in the works for that space or can be. So
Absolutely. We tend to do that on kind of a rolling basis. And, just this year, we just did one at our CA Park to reestablish a boundary to, better understand some trees we need to manage over there. And we just did one along North Walnut on some property that we own up there as well. So, I knowing roughly where the property line is through GIS records was enough in this case to know that, it did definitely encroach.
Sure.
And we could go back and define the line more clearly as needed, but I don't think that level of detail is necessarily needed here, but yes, that is something we look at.
Okay. All right. And yes, Jim, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got no surprise, I've got a couple questions, sorry. So there's no question in my mind that the people that built the property owner, the property owners that built these had the good intentions, and they did a nice job, and I appreciate that and don't have any questions about that. My question, however, is, and I haven't seen the encroachment agreement, and this might be a question for you, Tim or Daniel. Who has now that these are built on our property, who has the obligation to maintain them?
Yeah, great question. Part of this, the standard template agreement assigns the responsibility for maintenance to the person building the encroachment. So for example, I know we just approved one a month or two ago. I think it was just this past month for the rail trail a little farther south. And so similar to that, the property owner maintains responsibility for maintaining it, keeping it up. And if the city ever needs to, the encroachment agreement allows for, the unfortunate reality that it needs to be removed to make way for utility infrastructure or trail improvements or something along those lines.
Okay, so I guess that that concerns me a little bit from the standpoint of, I'd almost be more comfortable if once these are done, if they're on our property, that we have the responsibility for maintaining them. Simply because you're going to have 5 property owners who have 5 different ideas about how to maintain these structures. And it's maybe different if you're talking about a hotel or an apartment complex than a private individual. And it seems to me that what if we walk along here and 3 of these steps are broken? Are we going to ignore that? Are we going to go to the property owner that says you need to fix it? Are we going to say that we're going to come along and fix it? We're going to charge you, the property owner, for the cost that it cost us to fix it? It just seems the fact that it's on our property that we're going to have to, we can't just ignore it if it's not being maintained properly. And everybody's going to have a different idea about how to maintain it. And they're going to have a different idea about how well it's built. This looks well built, but I can't tell from the picture. And what if doesn't meet code? Do we know if it meets code? Do we have an issue with ADA? Do we have to have it's on our property, do we have to have a ramp there because it's on our property to make for ADA? So I guess I'm a little concerned, and I get that this one could be an exception, and I'm not at all critical of the property owners for doing it, but I'm just wondering if this is what we want to be doing, I guess is my thought. And so that's my hesitation with the whole thing, is that there's a lot of unknown and a lot of risk, it seems to me, with this type of encroachment.
Sure. Yeah. And you get at, a lot of the questions that I was debating in this process as well, too, because you're right. We have a lot of existing encroachments with developments and hotels and apartment complexes where there's a pretty clear line of ownership. Individual properties tend to change a lot more in terms of that ownership. And so that's where, Daniel and I worked on this and talked about making sure this is recorded on the property. So any future sale, this would be part of it, unless the encroachment itself is then removed, in which case we can terminate it. But you're right, we do go along and look at some of these things. And it is required of said property owners to make those fixes if we need to, because we do reserve the right to remove something if it's unsafe. And that could, I think, happen in a number of ways. Number one, we could just notify the property owner and take it on ourselves, or it could be more of an abatement action that we would need to take after the fact as well.
Let me ask a question. What would be our position if the property line was right at the bottom of the stairs where the gravel comes up? So the stairs were totally upon private property. Would we have any jurisdiction, or would we have anything to say about that? Or would we, if our property line was where the gravel ends next to the stairs and the stairs did not encroach at all on our property, would we have any say in their ability to build these stairs?
No, not if the stairs themselves remained on private property, but the second that we get into making improvements on public property is where an encroachment comes into play. So, all up and down the beeline and the rail trail, there's certainly places where people have made their own, what I'm going to call goat paths, right? Or game trails through the woods that are informal connections. But if someone is going to make an improvement on public property and not just access through it, that is where these encroachment agreements need to come into play, and generally do, not just within our department, but across other city departments as well. They're pretty standardized.
Okay. All right. And that gravel, was that put down by us, or was that put down by the property owner?
That was put down as part of the encroachment. So that would be recorded as part of the encroachment as well, and to be maintained in safe fashion. And I definitely agree with a lot of your questions. And, one of the things I was mentioning was the environment and the aesthetic. Different parts of trail have different levels of connections too. When you're downtown Bloomington, you expect, there's a lot of connections to the trail. As you get farther out and you get down to the rail trail, that's more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not primitive experience, but a uninterrupted experience, so to speak. So would we turn around and now say to every property owner along here, yeah, we can go ahead and build all these individual connections? No, I don't want to set that precedent necessarily, but I think the fact that there were existing stairs here, makes a difference for me in taking this into account.
One other question, should we consider, or is there a reason why we wouldn't want to have the right, if we grant the easement, that we wouldn't have the right at any time at our discretion, with or without cause, to ask those stairs to be removed?
We do.
So it does, does the agreement say that?
It
Do
does.
we have to have a reason to have them removed, like they haven't maintained them? Or if next week we decide our new policy is we don't want these, you've got to remove the stairs, that we can go to them and say those stairs need to be removed?
I would need to check on that specifically, unless, Daniel, if you remember offhand what was in there. I know you were going through that document with me quite a bit lately.
I'll go through it here just to see if I can grab it really quickly.
The other thing, Daniel, is there indemnification language in there? I'm not sure how much good that would do, but
There is.
there any indemnification language?
There is, yes.
And how about insurance requirements?
I'm not sure that there's a specific insurance requirement that we would have for an individual homeowner agreement.
Okay. All right, I have real mixed feelings about this personally. I think the steps give us a reason to differentiate this from other examples, but I'm not sure the steps are that persuasive to me as a reason to build new. That's 3 steps of and that had to be built when it was still a railroad track. That wasn't built since it's been a trail, I don't think. I have mixed feelings about and and not because of anything the homeowner did. I get, and I'm not, they did a nice job and everything else. I just have mixed feelings about whether that's something we want to allow to happen on our right of way. And unless we've given lots of thought to it, and it's part of an agreement where we're funneling lots of people onto the trail from an apartment complex or something like that. So that's I'm just not sure, but those are my questions.
Okay. Let's see. Is there any other information, Jim, that you were waiting to hear from Daniel, or no?
No, I mean, I think my questions on the indemnity and insurance and those things are something probably to think about down the road. It's not going to make any difference, I don't think, in this situation, but.
Okay. All right. And Israel, do you have any questions for Tim or for Daniel?
Right, yeah, some questions. So parks staff were notified or contacted regarding this, and these notifications come from any routine from the office, or could come from citizens saying that there is a change in the big trail. How did this happen regarding the notification and then the visit to the owner and notifying the owner about this kind of infringement?
Sure. In this case, we initially became aware of it through a U report, which was from someone using the trail, reported it in the U report system, though we would have seen it in the next few days, certainly anyway, and taken note of it. I think I want to say there was a U report almost immediately, probably after it was put in. I don't know exactly what date it was put in. Nakota would probably know that, but yeah. And then what we did is Daniel and I worked together to send a letter to the property owners, notifying them that, hey, this was built onto public property, and for it to remain, there would need to be an encroachment agreement, which would need to be approved by the park board.
And Tim, when we say the public property would be, and maybe you answer this, the public property would be what they built with the improving the stairs. Is that the
correct?
Just
at least the majority of the stairs and the gravel connector to the trail would be on the public property there.
Okay, and what is being asked is to approve the agreement with the owner that they will be responsible for any kind of treatment with this space, and the responsibility, the liability, it's what do they have to do, and how often this is revised by the office. What is expected from the owner, and if there is some kind of visits, or how is this evaluated in any time?
Yeah, I think it assigns the responsibility for maintenance and care, liability, and then indemnification of the city for it to said property owner, and then the city retains the right in an instance where it needs to be removed to ask for it to be removed or to have it removed. And Daniel can correct me if I'm missing or leaving anything out on that.
To remove or to improve, if that's could be also the request to improve, if that's the request, or it's just remove and the owner has to just.
We could certainly say, if it's not up to safety, what we look at as being safe, we could ask for it to be improved. If it's not improved, then for it to be removed. And the same would go anywhere along with any of our encroachments that we have out there.
And in this particular case, there is no need for access to disabled people, because this is a personal or the owner. I don't know, because it's not on the request, but there is no one in the family with any kind of request for disability, because I just see the stairs.
And I would let Ms. Brault answer that question, I think.
No, there's nobody in our home or the house next door, to my knowledge, that has a disability. The house next door has a bunch of children that also use the stairs, which was also motivated us to improve the steps because we didn't want them to get injured.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have more questions, Tim. Thank you, and Kathleen.
Okay. I just, since we do have Ms. Braun here, I was just, when we were talking about the age of the previous steps, do you know how long the previous steps had been there, or?
No, we bought the house in June, or we closed in July of 2020. And the previous owner, when we had talked to her, she said they had been like that for quite some time, and that she just never got around to doing anything with them. And so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So, all right, so,
Kathleen,
yes,
that's one last question,
Sure.
because I see that we have the grass, and I don't know if there was some kind of removal of grass because of the gravel that we see on the picture, or that was a space that was just clean.
It was a dirt path that had been beaten down from time of like people walking down at me and my dogs. But it was a dirt path. I think the only bit of grass was the little bit that was like right up next to the trail itself. And I will be honest, we were not expecting the gravel to reach out as far as the trail. We had wanted it put down just at the bottom of the steps, and it was not put down at just the bottom of the steps. They extended it all the way to the trail. So
Thank you. And team, Kathleen, if you allow me one more question.
yes, certainly, yeah.
So with that report from the person who did this, there was any kind of concern because seeing this new, or any kind of a complaint because that's something that wasn't part of the trail in previous time? Or is just,
Did we get complaints or concerns? Was that your question? I'm sorry.
right, because the document says that you were notified, and I don't know if that notification implies some kind of something that might affect that person who filed the notification.
The only thing I ever heard about it was the singular U report that just said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was property owner has built steps onto Beeline. And that was the extent of what we heard. I didn't receive any other phone calls or anything about this.
Okay, thank you, team.
Okay. All right, so with that, the recommendation that we have from Tim and the department is the post-facto approval of the encroachment agreement with Nakota Braun. So I don't know, where we are here, do we have a motion for approval of this encroachment agreement?
I think I want to ask two questions, I think, and
Sure.
maybe, and I think I've asked them, but I'm not sure. I think I've commented on them. I'm not sure I asked the question. Tim, do we know if these are built to code, and is there a code that covers this?
I did not specifically go out there and measure, but from looking at them, it appears everything is up to snuff.
Are those property owner? Are those pre-built risers? Buy those, or something?
No, I don't believe they were pre-built. I believe that they were actually cut out.
Okay.
I believe. I'm not sure. I was actually at work when they were doing the work, so I'm not for sure.
Okay. Okay. And Tim, do you or Daniel know, do we have any ADA problems with this?
No. In short, we
Because
strive to build.
How to get onto the trail?
Pardon me?
do we have other options? We have options for the disabled to get on the trail so we don't have to have an access at this point.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I will make a motion to approve the easement agreement with one modification if it's not in the easement agreement, and that is that we can ask to have the steps removed at any time we want to, with or without a reason. In other words, at any time, and maybe the agreement says that, but if it doesn't, at least on this easement agreement, I would like to have it modified to say that we can request to have these removed at any time at the total discretion of the Parks Board or city or whomever would make that, whoever the agreement is with, and not have to do it just because they don't maintain it or something else. That if a year from now, we decide this is not a good idea, or we get lots of complaints, or we get 10 other people saying that you let them build it, you don't, that we can go back and say, you're right, we want to have this removed, that we have that option in whatever encroachment agreement we sign with them. So that would be my motion, to approve the encroachment agreement, subject to having a without cause provision to permit us to have these steps removed at any time.
Okay, and do we have a second for that motion as Jim described it?
Right, so clarification, Jim, so that would be having the power to remove without any claim from the owner.
Right, having the power to remove without any ability to object to that or claim that we're in violation of the encroachment agreement, that the agreement says we can request they be removed at any time. We're allowing them now, but we can request that they would be removed at any time if we so determine.
Jim, I've got the standard language up, and I can go ahead and read that to you because I think that would be beneficial at this point. It says, and again, we would route this through afterwards. The question tonight was whether or not to do it, and now we can route this through. But the city may alter the terms and conditions of the encroachments to address unanticipated problems, or may even revoke permission to encroach if the city determines the encroachments are undesirable in terms of the general welfare of the city or city property.
Right. Just one last question before giving giving the second, but a team or anyone who can answer this. If this happens again with a different owner, the city parks can tell that person to remove anything without having this kind of a post-facto agreement, right? So if there is something similar, the city can say you need to remove this. But since this is well, there is any kind of complaint as I could hear, and the person was just notifying that there is something new, but this doesn't in any way affect the people using the lane. So I will second the motion with the modification that Jim has mentioned.
And I think that the language that Tim read would satisfy me. So I would be comfortable with that language. We may want to consider different language down the road, but that language I think would be sufficient to allow us to request that they remove it at any time.
Okay. All right. And then Kim, so there's a motion and a second to approve the encroachment agreement. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Kathleen Mills,
Aye.
Israel Herrera,
Aye.
James Whitlatch.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. The motion is carried. And thank you to Ms. Braun for coming on to our meeting and answering our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then Paula, back over to you. Do you have anything you need to remind us about before we adjourn?
No, just thank you all for your time for this special meeting. As you mentioned, this is something both items, we didn't want to wait till our next park board meeting. So thank you for your time this afternoon so we can move forward. And we are planning for your next park board meeting next Tuesday, October 19th at 4 p.m. And Kim and I are putting the finishing touches on the packet that you'll receive Friday afternoon.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Staff and
Thank you.
board members. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Bye.